Hi, and welcome back to Medically Assisted CBD with Charlie Piamarini. Continuing with our guest podcast, we've got a very special guest today, someone that we've been doing some work with behind the scenes, and we are actually featured on their app, Mr. Daniel Torres. Thank you for joining us today, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You have an interesting story. We were just talking about how you are one of the people that are really trying to legitimize CBD, the hemp, the marijuana industry as a whole. And you've got some really great stories. You have a really interesting business and a really cool background. So why don't you take us through, where you came from and where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm really happy to be here. I love the podcast. I love what you're doing out
Thanks,
there
man.
in Arizona. And I see, this as a trend for folks to emulate, to look at the industry, look at everything that is being done on the hemp CBD side and in
Hmm.
the entire cannabis industry from a wellness, health, and medical perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Um,
Welcome, man.
as you said, I'm Daniel Torres. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and actually, my business partner and I have been friends since we were maybe 14, 15 years old. We were in high school, and we took similar paths and ended up here together. We both went to business school. He is a CPA. He's
Okay.
had huge jobs in the insurance industry. And then we both went to law school, so we're both lawyers
Oh,
too.
wow.
And I took the really corporate route. I worked for Fortune 500 companies on Wall Street and DC. And he stayed in the insurance industry, more on the accounting side, but also doing legal work. And so we always wanted to be in the space. We knew that it was coming, and we wanted to be a part of it. We believe in it from a health perspective, from just a wellness perspective, and just from destigmatizing and decriminalizing this whole craziness that became the war on drugs and all that, right?
Right. Yep.
So about I'm going to say about 7 or 8 years ago. Wow, it's been a long time. The first medical marijuana laws were being drafted down in Puerto Rico. I was living in DC at the time. He was still in Puerto Rico, and he got one of the first drafts of the bill that was going to be introduced. And so we started talking about it. Again, both of us as bar attorneys weren't necessarily comfortable because, marijuana is still a Schedule One substance.
Yep.
And so we were like, okay, how do we go about it? And so he and his wife started what is now known as the CannaWorks Institute in Puerto
Okay.
Rico. The law down in Puerto Rico requires that you go through a series of courses, and you know this well. You are the master creator of the CBD educational series, and so which is amazing, and that's the route that we need to take as an industry from the
Yeah.
education point of view. So the CannaWorks Institute was created to certify patients, doctors, bud tenders, anybody that's going to work in the industry, to give them the courses, get them certified, so the health department would issue them a license. And
Okay.
so that's how we kind of got started in this. And then in early, I would say early 2018, mid 2018, when we got a word that the farm bill was coming down, we started putting our heads together and said, okay, this is how the industry is going to become mainstream and how it's going to come
Yep.
out from the
Yep.
hemp side and the CBD side, because now it's going to be accessible. And so that's where we started our path, and we have a few ventures going on at the same time. We do have a hemp farm down in Puerto Rico. It's beautiful, and actually there's, because of the weather, we can do 3 crop cycles a year,
Oh, wow.
and even give the soil time to rest. So right now there are little babies in the ground, and they will be coming out and harvested in March. So it's really cool to see how that process is coming along, and we have some distribution and other stuff. But we wanted to build a platform, and this is where MapMyCBD comes in. We wanted to build a platform where we would make the hemp industry, the cannabis industry, CBD in general, kind of accessible to people.
Yeah.
right? We wanted to destigmatize it. We wanted to legitimize it. We wanted to uh, just make people kind of forget those stigmas and all those things and look at this from a wellness medical perspective, from a health perspective. You know, I always tell people, 15 years ago, no one was talking about antioxidants. No one was talking about, uh,
Homeostasis. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and until Gatorade came out with electrolytes, no one was
Right.
talking about that kind of stuff, right? But
Right.
it's always been there, and cannabinoids have always been there, and the law, the everything got kind of perverted in a way where now it was looked like you were a criminal because you were seeking pain relief.
Correct. Correct.
And so we wanted to create a platform where we would get consumers access to top brands, to health practitioners like yourself, and medical practitioners, and learn and see what was out there and find products, find professionals that could help them, and do it in a safe professional environment. And so again, we talk about it a lot, and the fun days that back in the 90s of the marijuana, big marijuana days, and which
Yeah.
was all great and fun, and it has its space and it has its market, and it's I'm not criticizing it at all. um, that we are seeing now how everybody's walking away from that and really focusing on the health benefits of the plant,
Yeah.
and we want to be part of that. And so if you look at our app, that's why we stayed away from the color green.
I
That's why
100% agree. Right.
that's why we stayed away from using the word weed or
Yep.
anything even remotely related to that. We want to of course when we use the letters CBD because we wanted people to know what it's about, but we want it to just be more open. And we can talk about some stories of folks that testimonials that I get on a daily basis
Yep.
from people that would normally have nothing to do or would want nothing to do with the word marijuana, or even with the word cannabis, but they feel very comfortable with understanding that CBD is a cannabinoid, it is a component, there is a chemical, you know, balancing that happens in your body. And then when you start talking to them from that perspective about your endocannabinoid system and CB1, CB2,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they go like, oh, wait, there's actual science behind this. It's not just some kids smoking pot in the backyard.
Yep.
That triggers a lot. And especially with the older generation, I'm seeing it. The younger generations, I'll consider myself young because I'm still in my 40s. Uh, we we're more open to it,
Yes.
right? But my parents, for example, are in their 70s, and we grew up in a very conservative Hispanic environment, and they're like, marijuana, and you're like, no, no, like let's talk about it from a different perspective. And my mom is now an avid everyday user of CBD. She has a very severe arthritis that we're able to manage with CBD tinctures and topicals, and she's doing really well. And now she tells all her friends about it, and this is the way we get the word out. How about
Correct.
people seeing?
Destigmatizing it. Right. Yep. Yep.
Yep, yep. We destigmatize this. We get people talking about it openly and seeing the benefits of it, rather than, oh, I took it and I got really high. Like that's not what we're about.
Yeah. And
You know?
that's I think that's what all of us in the industry are kind of fighting against is the stigma that CBD is marijuana. I mean, when I first started this, my parents were like, "Why are you selling marijuana? You're like a drug dealer." And I was like, "No, you can't." And then I started giving them some products. My mom has some ankle pain, my dad has some knee pain, and they started using this stuff. And like, well, that stuff really works. And they're telling all their friends, "Hey, my son, you go get that marijuana stuff from him." And I'm like, "Mom, you can't tell people that. I'm gonna lose my license." And so they are now believers, and I had to educate them. And that age group is who would get the most benefit
Absolutely.
from these products. So educating them that CBD is just one of the, over 150 active components. So it's not marijuana. You're not going to get high. You're going to feel better. that's what
Yeah.
that's how you're going to feel high. You're going to feel better, and that's relaying that message is tough because they grew up in the, in the generation of, this is your brain and this is your brain on drugs. Remember the scrambled egg thing,
Oh
right? And
God.
so,
Oh God. Do
uh,
I ever remember that? Oh
I mean, that was a great campaign, and we all went through Dare. In our age group, everyone had to go through Dare. But
yeah.
we missed the mark on that, and they still haven't decriminalized marijuana as a Schedule One. I think it's coming, but
Yeah. For
every
sure.
state's doing their own thing. But I think trying to education in this industry, and that's what I've learned is key, right? I've got people sitting in my office every day that I talk with about all that marijuana stuff, or hey, you sell that marijuana stuff. How's it work? I'm gonna get high, or hey, I tried it. I bought it at the gas station, it didn't work. I'm like, well, yeah, that's why it didn't work, and so educating people on that, and I'm glad that me and you've connected about
Yeah.
being education is what the backbone of our industry is going to be, and this is how we grow the industry, and this is how we really get change to happen, not just at our level, but at the state and the governmental level
Yeah.
of getting, these bureaucrats to adopt it. And I think they're starting to see it.
Hmm.
You can't ignore it. It's a projected to be what a multi-billion-dollar industry, if it not already is. And so I'd
Yeah.
like to see what one, why CBD for you? Like what brought you into this? You kind of touched on a little bit about you and your business partner seeing that the marijuana bill in Puerto Rico kind of getting passed. You came from you're a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And
A
you're
corporate lawyer.
a corporate lawyer, right? And you're a corporate lawyer and you come from a strict conservative, background. And I'm assuming if you probably ever smoked marijuana, your mom would have beat you with a frying pan, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
so, and now you're in the business of growing hemp and selling CBD, having the platform for CBD. What brought you here?
It's that's a great question, and it's so funny that you brought up like the whole conservative. Yeah, I am a active member of my church.
Uh-huh.
I lead a small Bible study.
Yeah.
Um, and so I have these conversations at church. I have these conversations with my pastor.
Right.
And so it's helping open up those things that are like, whoa, wait, these guys, you're not selling weed. And so people walk into my office. I'm in my office right now, and and I have product and actual hemp flower from clients and
Yeah.
from people that we're working with, and they walk in, and sometimes it smell. They get the smell, and I can tell that when they walk in, they recognize the smell. And so
Yeah.
I look at them and I say like, no judgments, because
Yeah.
you know what that smell is. And so it's kind of cool to get there. But to answer your question, I have been an insomniac my entire life, or I was an insomniac. Even as a little kid, I slept very, very few hours. As a college, I was just a college athlete. I played soccer in college, and I wouldn't rest well. And one day, many years ago, somebody said, you know, that you could probably get a medical card for medical marijuana, and that would help your sleep patterns.
Yeah.
And so literally that's how I started going, like, and this were some friends out in California, because again, they were
Way
way
ahead.
ahead of us. And I said, really? And so I kind of started learning about it, understanding it better before I actually got into it. And that's a funny thing. I tell everybody, listen, back in college and even in law school, I didn't smoke marijuana. Like, yeah, like every once in a while somebody would like get it, but I was getting tested. Like I was an athlete. I
Yeah.
couldn't.
Right. Right.
and so and so like it's not like, oh, I want to get into it because I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. Like, no, 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 no. I needed help because I would go 3, 4 days without sleep. I was traveling all the time, flying from DC to Asia to Latin America, like working on all these deals from my legal practice. And that, my body was
All
completely
messed
out of
up.
whack.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely out of whack. And so I started learning about it, and I got studying, and then I started testing out what worked for me. And then I started learning about strains, and I said, all right, so is this indica strain that's super high in this specific cannabinoid helping me? I took it and I would write it down and be like, okay, this is good. I feel better in the morning. Okay. And I got to the point where I now know my strains. I now know my dosage. I now know, and I've taken it down to, and you could probably relate to this. I'm a little bit of a nerd.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I have it like all written down. I have a little Excel that I go like, all right, let me, because now I know, I need 30 milligrams of, a high CBG dosage, or I need, uh, there's a company that makes a really good, they call it an AM capsule. It's really just a blend of caffeine, CBD isolate, and coconut powder to make
mhm,
it
yeah,
emulsify. And I take that in the morning, and it's fantastic
yeah,
because it's like having a Cuban coffee without the jitters, and
yeah,
it's fantastic. It's most people take Adderall. I take this,
yeah,
and
yeah, right.
and it's great. And that's how I really got into it, because I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be able to rest. I wanted to, and that's how I really started learning about it, and then saw the benefits of it, and then we saw the business side of it and said, yeah, this could work.
And I think that's common. I've interviewed one other guy, Dan. He was a corporate accounting finance guy on Wall Street. I mean, he was in. You can't be any more corporate, right? And so, similar journey to what you have, and how I came to this too, and how a lot of my patients come to it is you start to kind of look at alternatives, right? Everyone's more into natural stuff nowadays, and no one's really wanting to do Ambien. It's so bad for you, and all the benzos and all that stuff. So people are coming to the natural alternatives, and they're the best conversation I have with my patients, and you did it yourself, was this is a personal journey, right? Everybody's endocannabinoid system responds differently, which is a blessing and a curse, right? If I give you, you know, a certain milligrams of Ambien, you're going to sleep. I know it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. But this is kind of where you actually get a personal journey of what other medicine do you get to actually personalize your dosage and how you respond to it. And,
Mhm.
I have patients keep a journal, write it down, and come back in a couple of weeks, like, self titrate. Here are the guidelines. Where you should kind of stay within, and figure out what works for you, right? Oh, it made you were too stimulated at nighttime. Okay, let's back it off. Let's try this, strain, and you kind of meld it to what works for them. And everybody's dosage is different, but that's what's fun about it, right? Patients actually have control and in this process, rather than, here, I'll write you a script for Ambien. I'll see you in a couple months, and you're going to sleep, but it's not going to be good sleep. You're not
No.
going through REM and Delta. You're just out. And so that's the big part that I really do enjoy about cannabis and about hemp, and about CBD, is this is a personalized journey. And you
Mhm.
touched on that. Your mom has really bad arthritis, and you finally showed her a strict conservative Hispanic
Yeah.
woman about CBD, right? And she probably thought that was the devil's oil. Um,
she
and
gets she gets pushback on, because she now posted it all over, like she's on Facebook, right?
yeah, right.
And she posts stuff like, I took my CBD today and I feel great. And I read the comments from some of her friends, and they're like, wait, you're taking that? Isn't that illegal? And because there's still not that, knowledge,
Yeah.
and she's educating her friends and the
Yep.
people that are like in her group, you know, they're in their 70s and late 60s, and they're all now talking about this, and they're all like, wait, is this gonna help me manage like some of my pain, some of this? It's fascinating. It's really fascinating, man.
Yeah, I think, that generation would benefit, like we said, the most from it, and trying to educate them is the biggest part of our job, right? And getting legitimate products, staying, when I created my brand, I stayed away. I have a medical cross and a lotus leaf, right? Mixture of
You know,
Western and Eastern medicine. And the brands that I think, have just such marijuana, they got the dancing bears and stuff, and, they got the marijuana leaves. And it's because this culture is still evolving from in
yeah,
the back van, in the back of the alley, getting, eights and quarters, to now, like, these dispensaries in Arizona. They passed. It's been medically legal here since the 90s. We were one of the first states, actually, but it just
yeah,
passed this year for recreational. And even the
yeah.
dispensaries nowadays, if it looks like an Apple store, right?
It is.
It,
That's
I,
why I tell everybody
I mean,
it's an Apple store.
it's an Apple store with, I mean, I had a patient in my office last week that was telling me, she's like, I smoked weed in college, okay, oh, great. She's like, I've been having trouble sleeping. I use it again. And she's like, I took a gummy, and she's like, I was so high for 8 hours. I was like, well, yeah, this is now there are scientists in
Mhm.
labs with
Yeah,
PhDs making these, not
Yeah.
just you and your buddy growing some stuff in a pot in, your basement with a light on it. Like
Yeah.
this is now medical. There's medical grade and strains, and like,
Yeah.
this is not your ditch weed, so,
Yeah.
but getting away from, and that's the biggest thing I fight against every day is these patients are like, I got too high. Either it didn't work or I got really high. So either you had a bad product or a mislabeled product.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I kind of are fighting against, trying, especially with your platform, trying to really just highlight legitimate companies that have good product, that have the correct labeling, that are actually doing education.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I have talked about, the education piece. Talk a little bit about that, about MapMyCBD and education, and what you're trying to, the future of what your platform is trying to look for.
Yeah, no, great. And that's perfect. The way you put it. I mean, it is going to be driven by education.
Yep.
Again, everybody asks, the first question everybody asks is like, am I going to get high?
Yes.
I'm like,
I even asked that the first time I took it, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, everybody. Like, am I gonna, like, my wife, she asked me like the first time, she's like, is this gonna get me high? And I'm like, no, 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 just try it. And I think, and that's what we're trying to do with Map My CBD. And right now we're in that process of highlighting education. We're putting up content about news that's coming out, whether it's regulations, whether it's, we saw the USDA come out last week or a few days ago that they came out with new rules. So from our perspective, we wrote a little summary of, listen, this is what the new rules mean for us. We put it on the platform for people to kind of, not only for the businesses, but also for people to know that the US federal government is finally paying attention to this, and they're going to start regulating it. We're waiting for FDA regulations since 2018, right? And this week we found out they pulled out the regulation, the proposal that they had sent the White House. We are expecting that hopefully they come back with a lot more industry friendly proposals.
It looks like they're going to try and raise the THC limit, which I think
Yeah,
is
yeah.
awesome.
I mean, if you think about it, and I always go into my little history spiel. The founding fathers grew hemp, right? George
Yep.
Washington was a hemp farmer.
Yes.
And at some point in American history, you could even pay your taxes in hemp.
Yep.
And again, it was a legitimate industry. There were laws in several states that if you had a farm, you were required to dedicate a portion of your farm to hemp because they saw it as a cash crop. And everybody that's seen Dazed and Confused knows the cash crop joke.
Yeah.
But it's true. And that's what we're trying to do. And so, like, guys, think about this for a second. The founding fathers, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, I think they were the most brilliant group of men ever to grace the earth, in at least in modern history.
Yeah.
They were hemp farmers, but they weren't lab testing their plants.
Right. Yeah.
And so the arbitrary 0.03%, like, guys, like, that's so arbitrary. Back in the day, even the founding fathers were farming hemp. They were smoking their pipes while they were drafting the Constitution.
Yes.
And they wrote a pretty darn good document.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And it's still around 250 plus years later. And so that's where we want to take this. Like, guys, this is normal. This is a good plant. And we need to take all those stigmas away and look at it from the perspective of, this could benefit a lot of people. And that's the education part. And if I can take 1 second, I want to read to you something that I got this week, literally
Yeah.
Tuesday, 6 p.m. And we were talking about this offline. One of my buddies, actually one of my wife's good friends, childhood friends since they were little kids, his mom is undergoing chemo right now. And when she was about to go into therapy, he came down to Miami, and of course he can't stay with her, and because she's
Yeah.
fighting for COVID and all that. And we were sitting here and we were talking about CBD and something that could probably benefit her. She's a cancer patient, and so he took a tincture. And when he went to see her, he can't go in the house. They're looking at each
Yeah.
other from the window, and it's all kind of
It's
weird.
tough.
But
Yeah.
yeah. And he gave it to her, and she tried it, and she started taking it before her chemo started, and she started feeling well. And he's been texting me on the progress that she's been undergoing. And the first day, she's like, "Oh my God, my pain was gone. Oh my God, my back pain, my knee pain." And we're like really excited for her.
Yeah.
Really, it's really encouraging. But this week, she actually started her chemo on Tuesday, and he sent me a text and says, "Another good day. She started chemo today. She had a runny nose and upset stomach. They gave her something that took care of the runny nose, but not her upset stomach. She took half a dropper and felt better within 15 minutes." That's the
Wow.
text.
Yeah.
And if you're in this space, and I know that for you this hits home
Yep.
because you're a professional, to see and to hear people that are actually using CBD, using hemp products to seek and to find balance in their health. Chemo patients, like cancer patients that are undergoing chemo, that can find some normalcy and homeostasis when they're like undergoing such a intense treatment. I mean, and it's
Right.
brutal. I mean, that if that doesn't encourage us to keep pushing the industry, to keep educating, to keep putting news out there, to keep just kind of like preaching hemp and
Preach the
CBD
gospel,
to
right?
the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
I don't know what will. Like, and that's one of those. I get stories like that on a daily basis from people. They're like, "Hey, you gave me those gummies the other day, um, and I took one, and I went to play golf, and I didn't feel back. My back wasn't sore, and it was great." And that's kind of silly. It's like, yeah, it helped you play a little better golf, but think about it. It can go from a cancer patient undergoing chemo to some dude that wants to do a 9 round of golf.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's got to be encouraging, and so that's why we want to focus so much on education,
Hmm.
putting out news content,
Yep.
and also helping promote businesses and brands, and professionals in the industry that are doing really good work out there, and make people say like, "Oh, somebody in Arizona is like, oh, I heard about this guy called Charlie and restorative and
Yeah.
whatever, and maybe I can contact him and he can help me out, and maybe
Yep.
I can feel that." Like, that's all we want. That's the entire drive of this app is, listen, we want to create a platform where people can connect, brands, consumers,
Yes.
professionals, create a space where we can all share ideas, share stories, learn, and create this multiplying effect of the wellness and potential that comes from CBD and from the.
Hmm.
And so that's our driving force. We also want to help the small businesses. They're, again, no disrespect to any of the other platforms that are out there, especially on the marijuana side and either medical or recreational, that have been around for years. I respect them, they're great. We wanted to build something for the smaller business that's not going to have access to one of the bigger platforms
Yep.
because of the fees. You're going to pay thousands of dollars to get listed on one of those. Like, for us, it's just a nominal fee that covers some expenses, and we just want to create an open space for
Yeah.
folks to
No,
reach
and
out.
that's why I signed up with you guys.
And we
And
appreciate it.
yeah, and I think before we go, what are kind of some parting words? Where do you see the hemp space in the next 5 and then maybe 10 years from now? Like, you're on the business side of this, you've got the legal mind. And so where do you think we're going to end up in the next, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, I'm a little bit of a history nerd, and so I've been studying how prohibition 100 years ago, literally, um, progressed, and how it developed until alcohol was completely legal, regulated, taxed, and available everywhere. No one's
Yeah.
killing each other over a beer anymore.
Nope.
No one's going to prison over a beer anymore.
Nope.
And so I think from a legal and criminalization point of view, I think that's where we're going to end up, in a regulated, very highly regulated, but regulated, taxed, but available industry.
Yep. Yep.
And from a business perspective, I think um, that, or at least this might be hopeful, wishful thinking, but I think we're going to end up in a place where you're going to have three categories: the
Okay.
the medical, the adult use, and the maintenance, what I call maintenance, right? And it's to put it in parallel with the medical space, right? You're going to have your medical, right? You're going to have certain products and certain uh, formulations that are going to be developed by really great scientists, by really great labs that are going to be targeted for strict medical use, and say, like, listen, we're going to make something that is really beneficial for cancer patients, or something really beneficial for
Okay.
and so they're going
Recovery.
to,
Yeah. Right. Yep.
yeah, and they're going to target that. You're going to have the adult use, which is going to look more like, listen, you have to be over 18 to buy it, and it's, fine. And then I think, and this is where it gets me really hopeful, that we're going to go into what I call the maintenance space. You go to the pharmacy today, you go to CVS, you go anywhere, and you can buy vitamin C, you can buy vitamin D, you can
Yeah.
buy a vitamin. And so I think we're going to start seeing, at least in the near future, hopefully in less than 5 years, but let's say in the next 5 years, uh, a section dedicated to CBD products in your local pharmacy.
It's already
That,
started, but yeah, it's going to just get bigger.
yeah, it's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
be like normal. Like, now
Yep.
it's not gonna be a novelty.
Yes. Correct.
It's gonna be like, yeah, you have your multivitamins, you have your CBD products,
100%. I
and
agree.
it's gonna be completely normal. It's gonna be completely legitimate, destigmatized, and folks are gonna start seeing it for what it is. Like, oh, yeah, my I always talk about my parents. I love them. They're amazing, and they have a farm down in Puerto Rico, like a little, like a little home farm, half an acre, and they grow their own herbs, right?
Oh,
And,
cool.
my dad grows turmeric
Oh,
and
nice.
all those things, and he's like, they're very much into that, growing stuff from the earth.
Yeah.
Like, I've been at their place, and my dad has made me a salad. Everything on that plate has been from his garden.
Garden. Yeah.
It's
That's
incredible.
awesome. Yeah.
And so, to the same extent that he has turmeric and he mixes it with some ginger and whatever, and he makes himself a little drink or a tea or whatever, I think we're going to start seeing folks get more comfortable with integrating CBD and hemp products into
I
that kind of regime. And I think it's going to be a beautiful thing.
I agree. I agree 100%. I think it's already happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got, I think once we saw the hemp bill pass, I think it just opened up
Yeah.
people's curiosity, and now it's just educating people about what it is, how it can help, what it can and can't do, just as important as what it can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think this industry is just starting, and I think in the next 5 to 10 years, it's just going to it's going to be a very interesting ride. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think we're going to just continue just trying to help people. That's why you and I both got into this industry, just on different sides,
Mm-hmm.
of just trying to help our patients, help your consumers, help all of our friends and family. Um, and so,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you joining us, and telling your very interesting story from corporate lawyer to to growing hemp now. But you know what? That's it's becoming very legitimate, and it's becoming more mainstream. So it's me and you having this conversation 5 years ago would have been edgy. Now it's kind of like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's 100% makes sense. And I think that, as professionals and people that come from the corporate world, from the healthcare world, like legitimate
mhm,
professionals, accountants, and everybody starts coming into the industry and making it a professional, legitimate business and industry to help people from the medical point of view.
yeah,
And as we get regulations, and I know it sounds weird coming from a lawyer, I welcome the regulations. I
yes,
want regulations. I want rules, because I want everybody to be playing in a level playing field, and I
100%
want
agree.
patients to be able to go and buy something that they know is safe and not some
Correct.
snake oil in the gas station. And listen, don't get me wrong, I've actually seen decent product at gas stations.
Yes.
I really crazy,
Yeah.
but you don't know. And the normal, like, for even for us that we're in the industry, we have to kind of grab the product, read it, scan it, and kind of see what it is. And even then, I'm going like, is that lab test real? Like,
Yeah.
imagine for someone that's not knowledgeable or as knowledgeable as we may be or have because we've been exposed to it more. Uh, I want it to be regulated. I want it to be, you know, on the up and up. I
I
want
agree
everything
100%,
to
man.
implement the same rules because that's the only way we,
Can move
one,
forward.
are able
Yeah.
to move forward 100%.
100%.
And that's what I'm
100%.
waiting for. I'm imploring the FDA to finally come out with something that's industry friendly, that is patient friendly,
Yep.
and not just say like, oh yeah, you could do a topical, but we may not necessarily agree with it, and we definitely don't think you should be ingesting it. And I'm like, guys, come on, come on.
They're still trying to figure it out, but
And I lived in DC long enough to know how this works.
oh God, yeah, that's a topic for another time. But Daniel, always appreciate you, man.
Yes, man.
You
Thank you.
keep grinding, keep moving us forward. I think we all just stick together. Everyone moves this needle in the right direction. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you, man, and hope you have a great day.
You too. And we're waiting for you down here in Miami, man.
I'm coming. Me and my wife.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too.